country road, take me home to the place where I belong. Breakfast with Bob, St. George, Utah, take me home. Breakfast with Bob.
Hacho Man! Welcome again to Breakfast with Bob, St. George edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Master Spa Zion's Bank, Quintana Roo, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Clash Endurance, Premium Plus Sports, and the Challenged Athletes Foundation. Gentleman who's in the USA Triathlon Hall of Fame, the creator of Slowtwitch, the creator of Quintana Roo, one of my favorite people on the planet, Mr. Dan Empfield joins us. Danny, what a treat.
Bobby, I've never been on your show before.
I know. I love the fact that you're joining me.
I love the fact that you invited me. And, I did the Hawaiian Ironman in 1981, and everybody's really, oh, man, you go back that far, and
Yes,
first year ever
you
in
do.
Kona, blah, blah, blah. And every time I hear all that, I think, yeah, but Bobby did it in 80.
See, I own you.
You
One
own me.
year, 1
You
year.
own me.
But-
You will
but-
always own me.
What I love is the fact that you were sort of an adventure guy going down to Quintana Roo, down in Mexico, right?
Yep.
And in 87, we were launching a thing called Competitor Magazine.
Yes, you were.
And you were writing an article called Rubber Barons for the first edition of Quintana Roo,
Yeah.
of Competitor Magazine, and created an ad for Quintana Roo on the inside front cover of the first edition of Competitor Magazine, and launched really what sort of saved the sport of triathlon, which was swimming wetsuits.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I don't know that I saved anything, but I will say this that you don't know. I'm doing a little, as soon as I leave here, I'm going to go into the expo and I'm going to do a little talk at the Canyon booth.
Yes.
And I have some 24 by 36 inch blow-ups mounted on foam board.
Yes.
And the first one, the most exciting one, and you mentioned Quintana Roo is one of the partners that you have here.
Yeah.
I showed this to the owner of that company, Peter Hurley. It's a blow-up of that ad I ran in your magazine.
Rubber. Yeah.
Well, what it was, I don't know if you remember this.
It was colored. It was like,
Well,
it was black and white, but it was colored wetsuit, I think.
No, the original one was, the model was Emilio De Soto.
Yes.
And he's standing there in his sort of bad boy club pose in the wetsuit, and the topic, the headline was controversial, and the rest of the text was just, because at that time, you remember this, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people did not want wetsuits in triathlon.
No.
The better the swimmer you were, the less you wanted wetsuits in triathlon.
They felt it was too much of an equal. I've worked for 20 years to become a great swimmer.
Yeah.
And you basically eliminated my advantage with a piece of rubber.
You know, that sort of mindset, and I get it.
Totally.
Right? But that ethic or approach exists to this day, because if you look at a lot of the wetsuits that are getting made today, that are the highest end wetsuits that are designed by the top swimmers. And I'm not going to point anybody out, but if you think of the people who today, like you think of Andy Potts, Jan Frodeno, Lucy Charles, Jan Siberson, and the Jorgensens, and the all the way down, all the great swimmers.
Yeah.
Some of those people are involved in wetsuit design, and when they make their own wetsuit, when they make a wetsuit for themselves, you probably don't want to buy that wetsuit. When they make a wetsuit for the next level down, that's like Float City, where you don't swim in it, you paddle it.
Yes.
That's the one you want to buy.
I want the hovercraft. I
You
want to
do.
be looking down at the buoys.
Exactly. And so you have to be a little careful. But anyway, it's an extension of this thing of, I love swimming, I'm a good swimmer, and I don't want anything changed about how I swim.
Right.
I want to swim the way I swim. I don't want to feel that the wetsuit is even on me. And so wetsuits that are designed that way work great for great swimmers. But for the rest of us
Whose feet sink.
Yeah.
And
We-
have 2x4s hanging off our ankles.
Yeah, bingo. Like the more rubber, the better.
I cover my head. I cover my hands. I wear a wetsuit in the shower.
There you go.
Anytime there's water, I'm wetsuiting.
Well, we used to sell wetsuits,
Right.
to some interesting retail outlets back in the old days. And there was a shop in San Francisco, and we would sell them wetsuits, but they would say to us, and this I'm just all. We would like to cut strategic holes in the wetsuits, and we would because we had our own factory
Right,
in
you
the
can do
U.S.
whatever you want, yeah.
It's not like today. It's not like my factory's in Thailand or China or no. We had our own factory 30 feet from it. So we made the wetsuits. We altered the wetsuits to
the client's
off
interest.
they went. So when I sold my company to Saucony, that was the one who
Right.
was East, Boston straight.
Right.
It's like, and they're looking through the customer list. It's like, whoa, we don't recognize this retailer.
Yeah.
Hey, they pay their bills better than anybody that we have.
Right.
So just leave those people alone. But that's part of the history.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and this last number of years, I remember you at Endurance Exchange a number of years ago. It was I forget what it was called, Try Business.
Yeah.
You talked about gravel and talked
Yeah.
about gravel triathlon, and that was going to be the future of the sport. And gravel obviously has exploded since, and now there are some gravel triathlons.
Yeah.
You still have that belief that the gravel triathlon is, because what I always thought is mountain bikes got hot, Xterra came around, and it never really got that big, because if you think about triathlon as this sort of a pimple of a small, then Xterra was sort of a pimple on a pimple, because how many people have the expertise to swim, ride a mountain bike, and run, especially a hard mountain bike. With gravel, but gravel is a lot more forgiving. Do you see people swimming, riding gravel bikes, and running?
I look at it this way.
Yeah.
And not that I know what I'm talking about here, but if you
But
go
you
to
do.
France, there's this phrase called terroir, and it has to do with the grape and the land, and like you plant the grape in the ground that God gave you to
Right.
make, and so there's this whole thing of it all kind of goes together. You can't just put any grape anywhere.
Right.
And I kind of feel that way about the endurance sports I like the best. It's like that. And so my view is, if you put on, and I know I'm going to make even more people mad at me, but if you put on a 140.6 or 70.3, and you're not an Ironman, you're never going to be putting on anything else other than a fake Ironman. So why not put on something that's a real something instead of a fake something else?
Right.
And so when it comes to, now there are some differences. For example, when our buddies, Jim Curl and the rest
Carl
of the
Thomas,
USTS, Tom, when they put on the USTS and they wanted to bring triathlon to the masses.
Yep.
They wanted to bring Ironman to the masses.
Right.
And they came up with what we know of as the Olympic distance.
Right.
Oh, okay, I get it. And they reproduced that all of it. Great. But that was like their thing that they came up with. You
Yes.
can reproduce the thing that you invent.
Of course.
It's just not as cool, and to me, to riff off somebody else's it's better if it's possible for you to find a course that God has given us, and then you say, like, we're going to swim across this lake, we're going to run around the lake, and then we're going to run to the top of the mountain next to the lake.
Yeah.
That's the course God gave you. So that's, and whatever the distances are, whatever the ratios are, that's the sport. That's the event I want to do. And then let me choose my weapon. And the thing about gravel is, if part of it's on, because Michael Marks used to work for me at QR.
Yes, he did.
And he made it good with BWR, which they just had.
Belgian Waffle Ride, they had like 3 events this year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what did he do? He's not putting on a gravel race.
No.
He's putting on a race that's 60% on pavement.
Right.
And then the rest of it, I'm scared doing it on my mountain bike. Right?
Yeah.
But that's the event. So here's the
It's
here's
his
the course.
brand, yeah.
Yes. Here's the course. Choose your weapon. Go.
And the public will tell you if it's successful or not,
Right.
by signing up.
Yes.
If they don't sign up, then they don't care about it. But if they do,
So there's 2 things about gravel, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Right? Number 1 is, here's the course, choose your weapon, go. And I think there's a triathlon out there that wants that, where some of it's on road, some of it's off road, and right.
a little different.
Yeah. And God or Mother Nature decides where the course is, and we all in the manufacturing end of it figure out the tech,
Right.
And the race director puts it on and we go. But about the Belgian waffle ride, I remember the first year I did it, I got a flat out there somewhere. And no fewer than 4 people passed me in the 5 minutes it took for me to change the flat, offering to stop and help.
See?
And so there's a vibe there that triathlon would appreciate.
Yeah.
Like, meanwhile, you have somebody crashing in, and triathlon's my sport. I love triathlon, right? But you crash on a bike, you could be laying there bleeding out, and everyone will just keep
They're going,
riding.
that's one less of my age division.
Exactly.
I don't have to worry about that guy.
So there's a vibe in gravel that triathlon.
Sort of like early triathlon.
Yes.
Early
this
triathlon.
is what I tell people is, if you put on a gravel triathlon, if you want to know what a triathlon in 1980 was like, put on a gravel triathlon.
No
I
question.
promise you that's the vibe of the early triathlon.
Well, you'll be at Kauai Loves You with the
Yes.
the bike racks that go like that, or you're laying them on the ground. And that's, to be honest, Danny, what I love, and why I've been such a big proponent of these pool triathlons. Because
Yes.
it's 3-mile run. I mean, to me, the perfect one is the Rose Bowl, right?
No. Oh, yeah. Been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
saw you there. Brennan puts that on, Linder. And it's a 3-mile run around the Rose Bowl, right?
Yep.
And then 3-mile loops. As a race director, you're blocking off 3 miles of road.
Yes.
And then you're doing the swim, so there's no scaffolding.
Yep.
There's nothing, and it's 50% men,
Mm-hmm.
50% women. Because it's only a 10-mile bike, you're not seeing $10,000 bikes. You're seeing people with bikes from the garage.
Yep.
So anybody can do it. So it immediately solves when we talk about, we're 70% men, 30% women, it's too expensive. It eliminates all of those barriers to people getting in. And,
You bet.
And the swim. You're jumping into a pool.
Yep.
Nobody's playing bongos on your head.
Yep.
Nobody's blinding you with glare.
Well, my wife swims, bikes, and runs.
Yes.
She's never done a triathlon.
Yeah. My wife has
yeah.
done a triathlon, but the same thing.
And I'm scared spitless of the idea of her doing a triathlon because of the swim.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I mean, when I did the Ironman in 81, that was in February back then.
Yep.
And I went back, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I got the permits, but I put on my first triathlon in August of 81.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the bug, and, so in 6 months, all that happened. And I had a lot of people at that race, and it was bike, run, swim
Swim at the end.
in a pool.
On the pool. Perfect.
And everybody loved it.
Yeah.
And it was accessible, and it was very hard to drown.
You've got lane lines. You got warm water. You got
Yes.
lifeguards. You got walls.
Well,
all the good stuff.
What people don't appreciate is that a lot of people, they get, they train, they get in their triathlon, they go, and they find out during the swim for the first time, I can't see the bottom. Or they get out there and they look back and it's like,
that's pretty far away.
That's a long way. I've never been that far away
Yeah.
from being able to,
Yeah.
right? And so triathlon, like we
scarier.
don't recognize how scary it is.
It's dark.
Yes.
It's cold.
Mhm.
It's the unknown. Big fish, big gray things out there. Again, people potentially playing bongos on your head as you're swimming. Glare, kelp. Anything that's bad is in the swim.
Yes.
Right? If you and I go for a run and you get tired, we'll walk for a little bit.
Yeah.
If you go for a bike ride and we get tired, we stop and walk for a little bit. We get in a swim and we're out there, we get tired, we die. That's a problem.
Yeah. Well, like I don't want to get morose and stuff, but as is the case with a lot of people my age, I have a lot of problems with atrial fibrillation and
heart issues. Yeah, big issue.
And it's not going to kill me or anything, but here's the interesting thing. I can go on long, hard runs and not get AFib.
Right.
But I get it in the pool. And that's because, and I'm sort of messing around now. There's a goggle with a heads-up display, Form.
Yeah, yes. Oh, Form is great.
So if you sync your heart rate monitor to the goggle and you take a look and see what your heart rate is during some of those swim sessions.
Yes.
Whereas in the run, you just stop, or slow down, like you monitor your output in the run.
Right.
Way easier than you do in the pool. So there's a lot of weird stuff in the water that I love swimming.
Right.
But it's a weirder sport than the other ones.
Absolutely.
In certain ways.
Way weirder. What do you see for the future for our sport?
Well, we've been around, and so we had this big run up between the beginning and the late 70s and 1988 or 9. Then we had a gradual drop off between 89 and I think the low point was in maybe 95. And then in 1998 or 9, and I'm not sure, but I think this might have coincided a bit with Graham Fraser putting on all these licensed Ironmans around the country. Sport starts to tick up, and then it rockets up until about 2011, 2012. And then it slowly, like 5 or 10% a year, declines.
Right.
And you can take this, you can graph this, and you can actually lay this over, population demographics and birth rates and all of that, and you can kind of see an outline of triathlon's intended ebbs and flows. Anyway. So long answer to your short question is, as I really think that, from 2011 on, it's like, oh dear, we're going to be kind of in a bad way. And pardon me.
You're the first person ever.
I thought I turned it off. 2012, I thought, it's going to be a rough go. But I really think that, and I knew that 2020 on was going to be good for us. We just had to make it through the teens.
Right.
And so I think triathlon's going to be in good shape during the 2020s. But it will have to evolve. Triathlon always needs to evolve. It's always like a kind of a cutting edge sport. It doesn't just sit there. I mean, I love marathons, but they just kind of sit there being the marathon. Triathlons need to sort of be reinvented. And, you see it in swimming, where these guys come out to the music and put on the thing. And this is the pool swim I'm talking about, where it's kind of like a boxing match. Everyone's coming out to the starting blocks. And so there's a reinvention that has to happen in certain activities, and triathlon's one of those activities that's kind of like that.
Yes.
So we need to evolve with gravel triathlons and
just more options.
Yes.
But aqua bike and just give people opportunities.
Yes. And so I've never really called myself a triathlete. I don't do triathlons, I do multi-sport.
I've always looked at endurance. We're endurance athletes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like in the old days, Mark Allen is like, hey, this is a big race in Switzerland, but you don't get to swim. Fine, I'll just go over and do it. And he goes over and he wins it.
Yes.
And so it doesn't really matter what the events, the distances, the ratios, any of that. Is it human-powered locomotion from point A to point B? That's it.
It's interesting talking to Heather Jackson, talking to Rach McBride. They're all in on gravel, right?
Yeah.
They're doing gravel racing and they're doing triathlon. It's endurance, and they use the gravel training for there's $250,000 from Lifetime in the gravel racing in their series, which is awesome.
I kind of feel, Steve Head, may you rest in peace,
yes,
dear man, was the one that turned me on to gravel. And it was maybe 2011 or 2012. And I said, Steve, okay, you've been talking about gravel, so tell me what I need to know. And he says to me, well, if you really want to know about gravel, who you really need to talk to is Guitar Ted. Now, I don't know who Guitar Ted is. I've never actually talked to Guitar Ted, whoever he is. All I know is any sport where I got to talk to a guy named Guitar Ted to find out about the sport, that's my sport. That is my sport. So Guitar Ted, whoever you are, thank you. But I just got into it and started, designing bikes for it and so forth. But I've always felt that gravel is part of multisport. I'm not giving it to cycling.
No. Yeah.
I'm taking at least half ownership of gravel because we had, like on Slowtwitch, we had to take something off our nav bar and stick gravel on there because it's so popular among our people.
That's very cool.
Yeah, during the height of the pandemic, we ran a poll. What's your next bike? And like 18%, it's like, I'm buying a triathlon bike. And 24% is I'm buying a road bike. And 30% was gravel bike.
Yes. Well, that's what Peter earlier was just saying.
Yeah.
They went crazy with gravel.
Yes. And now it's swinging around. There's a slight edge, triathlon, gravel, but it's very pretty even.
But I think the difference is with gravel, with triathlon, if you don't have a triathlon coming up, you don't necessarily, but gravel is something that it's a lifetime, it's recreation.
Gravel
It's
is
safe.
Yes.
You're not getting hit by cars.
Gravel is like surfing. It's like tennis. It's like skiing. It's a lifestyle sport. You don't have to have the race to validate the sport.
Exactly, yes.
Triathlon, if you don't have a race, you're not going to buy an aero helmet just because, I just
fun to
like,
have.
yeah. So
I
all
agree.
that stuff stopped dead. No wetsuit sales, no tri-bike sales. All that stuff stopped dead during the pandemic. And gravel is what rocketed off.
Well, and you think about it, think about the tri-clubs, and you think about the coaches. We were just talking to Matt Hansen, and he lost so many of his folks during the athletes, and he said when the oil went, all of his people in Texas were gone, right?
Right.
He lost like 40, 50 athletes in a day when the oil prices went crazy. So it's our sport is very sensitive to some of the outside markers.
One of the reasons why gravel has such a is so resonant with triathletes is triathletes are uniquely, like nobody else, equipment driven, tech driven.
Right.
And there is this off the charts percentage of triathletes who have GPS running watches,
Yes.
have GPS head units on their bicycle, rather
on
than
Zwift and everything else.
Versus of the single sport versions of those athletes.
But it's always been that way. Our guys will spend money.
Yeah. So the closest thing I can think of that relates to gravel is when another lifetime when I was a Nordic ski racer. And it was the skis and it was the wax and it was figuring out exactly like the kick wax and the glide wax and all that, this whole sort of how to, and gravel is like that because it's like, do I run my 650Bs with 53 millimeter tires or do I run my 700s with 38s and how much air, 24 PSI, 26, and the gearing and all that. And gravel is as tech sensitive as tri-bikes are.
Yes.
And so I think that this combo of the tech element of gravel and the freedom, just the freedom to, I go out the door, here's all these, I've been waiting for the county to pave these roads so I can do these loops. Well, now I don't have to wait because part of it's, and it's not like ride my mountain bike on the road. The gravel bike's pretty fast on the road.
Yeah.
So you can do all this. And so, I'm all about that. But, like I have race directors call me, I want to put on this gravel triathlon, and don't think about distances. Don't think about like if it's a pool swim, if it's a short swim, if it's a short run, if it's a mountain climb, whatever. Like this should be a thing that frees you to put on events. Not a thing where you're looking around for the perfect.
I gotta find exactly a 10K
the dirt
run
next to the lake.
All right.
Yeah, like then you're not going to put on a race people want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Danny, always such a treat to chat with you, buddy.
Thank you, my dear friend. But can I? Hey, one.
Yes.
Hey, David, I just want everybody to know the reason that there is a slowtwitch.com, the reason there's a Quintana Roo, all that. It's you. If you didn't let me write that article about wetsuits for your first issue of your magazine, there would have been no triathlon wetsuit. I'd have been off selling insurance or something. So you are the reason. Without you, there is no me in terms of what my life has been over the last 40 years. So
look at you.
Thank you.
Man. Partnership, baby. Partnership. Growing a sport. That's what it's about. Pancho Man, take us out.
Country road, take me home to the place where I belong. Breakfast with Bob, St. George, Utah. Take me home with Breakfast with Bob. Yeehaw.
Pancho Man, thanks everybody for tuning in. Legendary conversation with the legend himself, Dan Empfield. Hold on, everybody. We will be right back.